Hello, everybody, and welcome to Viewing Gods, the Explosion Network's American Gods Aftershow. This week, of course, we are talking about the final episode of the season, episode 8, and we close off the season by finally learning about Shadow's true origins, and we get to see the new gods also finally launch their massive plans to ruin everything, and whatever their massive plan was, put fear. New World wants, Mr. World wants to put fear into everyone. This week's episode, title, Moon Shadow, which makes sense, I suppose, because it's Shadow Moon's true origins. The plot. Directed by Christopher J. Byrne, written by Aditi Brennan Kapil and Jim Danger Gray. The middle name Danger, you know it's going to be a good episode, that's for sure. So yeah, overall thoughts on this episode, it was okay, I guess. That's the best I've got. It honestly feels like it was supposed to be episode 8 out of 10, not episode 8 of 8. If it had been episode 8 out of 10, it would have just been like, oh, okay, yep, and what's next? Like, what's coming with the final 2 episodes of the season? But as a season finale, it just kind of lands in a shallow pond and leaves nothing really. It's kind of weird how nothing of a season finale it is. It doesn't have any, especially compared to the first season's season finale, where it's like Easter, of course, famine, and the new gods facing off against the old gods for the first time finally after that entire season. Laura turns back up. Shadow now knows that she's back alive. Like, the season finale for season 1 at least had all these like massive things happening at the end of it, and season 2 has, it has Shadow's reveal, I guess, somewhat, but then it's still questionable if he's even accepting of that and what that means. And then it really leaves not much set up for this season 3. It doesn't really tease enough to be a proper like season finale, I feel. It's just kind of like, yeah, you obviously know there's more to come because the story isn't finished, but at the same time, it's like, gives you no idea of what that is, and it's questionable if even the showrunners or the network even knows what's to come. But we do know that season 3 is coming, so there is the 3rd season coming, at least. So it's not like this is the end of all things. Strong points this episode though were the opening scene for sure, the Mr. World scene, as we and we'll cover the episode in a second, but that opening scene, Mr. World and all that, was just shot great, and Christopher Glover was great in that, and that was put together really, really well. The reveal of Shadow's origins was a thing, which is kind of cool, I guess, but it wasn't as monumental, I suppose, as you may have wanted it to be, but it was still a interesting thing that happens this episode nonetheless. Yeah, overall, it was a perfectly okay episode of the reveal, I guess. It's just so mediocre, I feel, this season finale, that it kind of just sums up season 2 in its entirety. And as much as I love the last 2 episodes, which are definitely the strong points of this season, it's just like, to end the season on such a whimper, I feel it's quite confusing. But let's run through what happens this episode and talk about a couple things. So in the prologue scene where it opens, we get to see Mr. World, and he's talking through basically injecting fear, and how people fear the unknown and all these sorts of things. And we're introduced to it in a really cool way, I feel. It's basically Mr. World's origins. We see a family in the 30s, I think, roughly time. And they appear to be listening to the radio, just chilling out. And then, of course, they start hearing these... they start hearing reports of aliens basically appearing in farms and these sorts of things. And we know as the viewer that it's War of the Worlds, of course. But they don't know that. And it's the fear that's injected to him, which I believe was a thing that really happened in real life. A lot of people didn't know it was fake at first. And so that they eventually end up driving away from home, running away from fear of the idea of this aliens. And we get to see this scene of where Mr. World is then directing an alien movie, which I do believe is just mostly metaphorical, more so than an actuality of what was happening. And then a little kid is then seen watching the alien movie in his home, and then he gets starts believing aliens are real somewhat, I guess, because he's watching it, the fear of the unknown and these sorts of things. This little kid runs outside into a bar, into the field outside his farmhouse. Crispin Glover's hung up as a scarecrow. Lots of cool Glover things happening in this. And then the little kid runs off and he gets abducted by an alien. Now, does he really get abducted by an alien? No, I don't think aliens are real in this world, right? It's the fear of the unknown. He probably hit his head on a rock or something. Or maybe aliens are real. Maybe there's a god of aliens if enough people believe in aliens. But then Mr. World is a god of like conspiracies and stuff. So, I mean, surely not, because that's... Anyway, I think that's how it works, right? Isn't that how it all works? I think that's what we're saying. There's a couple cool lines he has in here. Like for one instance in this, he says, if you fear it in your mind, you fear it in the real world. So it's that whole play on what is really real. And if enough people believe in it, of course, then it becomes real. And in this world, the gods are real because people believe in them. And it's the whole thing about belief and whatever else. So it was a cool opening, prologue-y type scene thing that was happening. I took it as his origin, I guess. I'm not 100% sure if it was or not, but yeah, cool scene nonetheless. Directly following this, we go back to Shadow, and it seems this is pretty much straight after what happened at the end of the previous episode. Shadow is laying out on top of a gravestone, pondering Matt Sweeney's words that he had said to him about not trusting Wednesday and all these sorts of things. And while he's out there pondering all this, Wednesday kind of sneaks out the back door and takes off in the car. And then we also see that Ibis is tending to Sweeney's body. In his dreams, Shadow dreams about all things that Wednesday's kind of said to him. And it really sets up the reveal heavily. The reveal is... I think the reason it's not so cool is because it's so heavy-handed, and we kind of, if you had your finger on the pulse, obviously it became somewhat evident where the show was going this season several times over throughout season 2, where it's like Wednesday's just throwing out lines of, you remind me of my son and all these sorts of things. And then instead of just letting the audience be smart enough to kind of put it together this episode, they really had to do like Shadow lying on the gravestone and like lots of flashbacky stuff. It's like, I get it. You don't need to have like a 5-minute scene showing me the conversations. I'm aware. I've been watching the show. I get it. Does Shadow get it? Probably not, but I get it. As a viewer, I get it. When he wakes, he finds Laura by his side. She starts talking about everything she wants for them and apologizing and these sorts of things. Like, I love you, puppy, and all these sorts of things. Shadow says it doesn't matter, and he doesn't believe anything that she says anyway. Seeming, I wouldn't say like angry at her, but definitely like, I don't even care anymore. Just go away, please. And he says that sorry doesn't change anything because, of course, Sweeney was like, fucked her, fucked dead wife, and all these sorts of things. Shadow then explains he killed Sweeney, and Laura looks confused and a little bit upset, and I believe she definitely is upset. That plays in towards everything else you see her do in this episode. She seems shocked at first, but then kind of plays it off, I guess. Then she goes into explaining how Wednesday's a psychopath and pretty much backing up everything that we saw Sweeney say about Wednesday to Shadow in the previous episode. And then she's like, he's the one that ordered my death, all these sorts of things. Shadow doesn't really react to any of it. He's still, I guess, taking it in somewhat. And all this time she's been like, puppy this, puppy that, puppy this. Shadow then tells her to stop calling him puppy. And we get a weird flashback scene to why. It was weird. It's a weird flashback scene because of all the things to kind of record properly, to have a quick 1-minute flashback scene is like the origins of why she calls him puppy, which is that she wanted a puppy, and then she's like, steal it, and he's like, I'll be your puppy. I'm like, is that, I don't know if we needed a flashback for that, but nonetheless it's a thing that happens. And then Laura says, okay, whatever, and says that I'm going to kill Wednesday, are you going to stop me? And then Shadow just goes, free country. I thought that was a cool, funny back forth between the two of them. Like, I guess, free country. Do what you need to do. So Laura heads inside, and then she seems upset looking at the pile of blood, of Sweeney's blood on the floor. And Bilquist then comes into the room at this stage, and you can tell that she's like, you like him. I know that you like him. And then she asks if Laura wants to see the body, and Laura's like, no, why would I want to see the body and these sorts of things? But you know, we all know. Bilquist knows. We all know. Laura's upset. Full stop. Don't argue with me about it. They talk for a bit, and Laura ends up asking her for help to kill Wednesday, but Bilquist says no, she's good. This whole time she's carrying around an apple, which she then like plants on the table. She doesn't do anything. She just carries around the apple, leaves it in the room. Nothing ever comes back to the apple, but I was trying to look for some metaphorical reason, you know, like the apple off the tree, Adam and Eve, these sorts of things. Like I was trying to put it all together. I couldn't come to anything. I'm sorry. But I just found it weird that there was this apple just being carried around and then planted in that room, and I didn't really see anything come of it. But that's a thing that exists. Read into that more, if you will. I don't really know. Technical boy then returns. We got this is what happening. The big old technical boy returns. So we get seeing where the tech CEO is working on something, or simply procrastinating by playing Pong. I wasn't sure how his big souped up computer works. Maybe he's coding by playing Pong. I wasn't completely sure, to be honest. Then we see he has a metronome next to his the music metronome thing ticking next to him, and he stops it, but then he starts hearing another one. He walks across the room, it's on the ground, he stops that one. Then he hears another one, he walks more across the room, and he stops that one. And then after all that, he starts to get an epiphany, I guess, and all of a sudden he rushes over to his computer, and you hear like music kicking in, like like his old piano days type stuff, but he's coding away and going complete crazy. I don't really know what was happening. To be honest, did he lay out all the metanomes? Is that his way that he works to get to work? I don't know. So then we cut to sometime later, and it appears that he's done coding and he's recreated or some. I do not know how this all works. Full stop. At all. He definitely. It's not like he's created Technical Boy version 2, but Technical Boy. Well. Here's the other thing. It could be Technical Boy version 10, 20 for all we know. Of course, we got like Telephone Boy or whatever in a couple episodes ago. So it's like, was Technical Boy as Telephone Boy? I'm just calling him Telephone Boy. Was Technical Boy as Telephone Boy or Communication Boy or whatever the hell he is at that stage? Was he then like reworked eventually and turned into the Technical Boy we know now? Or was there a version between then? So it's like, really the version we're seeing now could be version 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know. But for the sake of the show, it's the second version that we're 100% knows, at least the second version. So he appears, and they make it out like there's like a face on the computer screen, and they make it out like kind of fucking the tech kid, whatever CEO person, kind of like 3D printed him, I guess. But he hasn't created him. He's done something. I don't really know what exactly it is. I suppose it's no different to his original creation. It's the belief, like, I try and put it all together. It's like, because before this world has a scene where he says, you know, to media, oh, look at the people up in the places, they're working on a thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Like, Technical Boy's creation in the first place, he appears playing the piano right as after his father dies and all these sorts of things. But then, like, that is not the first time that he ever shows up, because then we know that he fucking had showed up previously before Wednesday, so that definitely wasn't the first time he ever showed up. You know, it's becoming confusing. I'm struggling, to be honest. You can feel free to explain in the comments how or what exactly he did. Is it that he cracks the code for the technology that Technical Boy's about to steal, like this big Batman Dark Knight hacking people's cell phones and all this sort of stuff to be able to track anyone type thing? Is it that he cracks that stuff? And because he cracks such a breakthrough in technology, that causes his belief again in tech, and then that leads to like Tech Boy version 2. I don't know. We could be here all day talking about things, but just answer me in the comments. And then they have this whole thing where they end up sitting down and talking for a while, and there's a lot of quoting. I looked it up, Genesis 32. Particularly like one line about, you know, and Jacob said, I will not let you go to bless me. It's a whole back forth, very basically I took it as like the creator and the creation, you know, it's like he's having a conversation with a god, because then we cut to another scene directly following this where they're in some like big server room, something like technical boys like faces on the walls and stuff. It's all sorts of shit happening. And technical boys like us, they're having this whole back forth thing again, like, you know, God versus creator, creator versus God, and all these sorts of things. And Tech Boy ends up stealing the data, this camera, whatever stuff. I just refer to it as like Dark Knight. And if you've seen Dark Knight, you know what I'm talking about, because they have a thing in that where it's like Lucius Fox uses all this. They hack into cell phones to like GPS track people. Anyway, it's like that, but they're just hacking into everyone's cell phones and data and all these sorts of things to be able to see anywhere in the whole world. Even better than the tech they had with whatever the guy was from episode 2 or 3, whatever. I forget his name. I'm so sorry. But Techno Boy version 2 at one stage says, "You aren't created in our image, we're created in yours," which I feel is an interesting line to throw out there. And then he basically says, "And fuck you," and leaves. And fucks off with the technology because it appears he could be in 2 places at once. He just fast travels and all these things. Sometimes there's rules with the gods. I'm like, he can just, I don't know. Sometimes it's like they have rules, and sometimes they don't have rules. It's like Technical Boy, apparently this version 2 version can be in 2 places at once somehow now. Cool. You got more powers than other gods, I guess. I don't know. Is it because you're brand new and you're full of juice? Is that how it works? Who really knows? So then we get to play by the new gods finally. We get to see what exactly their big plan is. And the new tech that they've got their hands on, that they just stolen, they used to track down Shadow and Co. And then media begins using this new tech and controlling news reports, and using this massive data dump that they now have access to, and breaches of security and all these sorts of things to just send the world, or at least the US, I don't really know how far it stretches, into a streak of panic, while also using it to track down the old gods and Shadow and these sorts of things. But also at the same time, just sending the world into a whole panic because they reckon all their data's being breached, their banks, their security, everything. Like, everyone's freaking the fuck out because they don't really go too heavily into it, I suppose, but we have this one scene where Salim's at a bottle shop and he's buying booze for Sweeney's funeral or something, I guess. And then on the TV, the dude tells him he has to pay off cash first because he's not using the FBOS machine, and he's like, "Why aren't we using this?" And he points at the TV, and then we see the whole world's in havoc, you know, mass data dumps, everyone's freaking out, like the data's breached or whatever else. You could imagine the world. Everyone freaks out a little bit over Facebook. Imagine everything, right? Everyone outside, he walks to the gas station, everyone's like fighting over trying to fill up with gas. I suppose they think the world's going to fucking end. Y2K planes are going to drop out of the sky. Who knows? We don't really go too much into it. Salim rushes home at this point, or to the funeral parlor, I guess. And he flicks on the TV to keep watching it, where he sees that Wednesday and Shadow are being accused of killing a bunch of police in this place, and he starts freaking out, like, "Did you really do this? Did they really do this?" And I mean, it's kind of like a play on, fake news and believe what you see in the news and all these sorts of things. Because IBS at first is just like, don't believe everything you see on the news, these sorts of things. He's not too worried. He sneaks off. He starts having a chess game with Nancy. They begin talking about how close Wednesday is going to be cutting things. Apparently, it's like, how close to what exactly are they talking about? We don't really know what's going on. Shadow overhears this though. He sees what's happening on the news. He goes, "Fuck this shit! I ain't going back to prison." Makes perfect fucking sense, really. He then rushes upstairs to grab his stuff, where he finds a naked Bilquist, because sure. She kisses him and then says, "You taste of love lost." Then appears to put blood on his forehead of someone or some factor or some place, and then says, "Find out who you are," but then just seems to magically disappear when he opens his eyes. And he's a bit like, "Cool, don't really know. Cool, grab my stuff. I'm out of here." So on his way downstairs, Salim is now being joined as a target of the whole thing, where it's saying, this Salim, blah, blah, like a part of the group of terrorists or whatever they're trying to say they are. It's like media's just you see these I kind of like the way it was whole cut together. I'll say that. It's like you got these scenes cut together with media back and forth, like her, like, and the terrorists, blah, 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 and she's like searching for all these cameras and security cameras and cell phones and whatever else to track down where exactly they are. Shadow grabs his stuff and he heads down to the back door, but has a quick conversation with Salim on the way, and Shadow's like, "Come with me. We don't deserve to get in trouble for them. We don't need to be involved with their shit. It's their fucking problem. Let them worry about it." And then Salim's like, "Thank you, but I'll worry about my own stuff. I'm here. I'm my own man. I'm gonna look after myself. And Shadow's like, you do. I'm fucking out of here. I'm not going back to prison. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. On the way out, though, Shadow stops to look at the TV, and the media basically reintroduces herself, I guess, as Shadow stops to look at the TV for a moment. Have a whole back forth of her being like, you may not recognize my faces and all these sorts of things. And it was okay. I guess it's like, it's like epic showdown, like media reintroduces itself to Shadow. I'm like, Shadow's like, I met you like once, I guess, or twice, technically. Yeah, twice, I suppose. Whatever. He's probably forgot that she even exists. He's like, I don't even care. In Europe, you're a thing. So now she's found out where they are in the funeral place, and she's fed that media, has fed this information to the police, and the police have quickly sped down to the location because they're massive terrorists hiding out here, and they're showing up right at the door. And at this stage, Salim's at the front doors as the Jinn's trying to keep him back and tell him where to go. I don't really know what Salim was planning to do at this stage, if what happens, which is that the police obviously do leave or disappear or whatever happens here shortly. It's like, if that wasn't happening, I don't know what Salim's plan was exactly. Was he going to go out? Big suicide moment. Well, anyway, he turns to the Jinn and says, you've taught me how to love, in a very unearned, supposedly, I suppose, supposed to be a very romantical moment, I guess, between these two characters. Look, we're in the final episode, and I can definitely, although there was no doubt, but I can definitely say at this stage, the people writing these characters and everyone involved behind the show definitely feels like they've got something a lot more with these two characters and their relationship than they have. Because their relationship was a lot more interesting in that one-off episode that I absolutely loved in the first season. Everything between this season up until that final scene where it's like, you've taught me how to love. I'm like, that's doing nothing for me. You have not earned that line to be doing anything emotionally for me. Get the fuck out of here. Got nothing happening. So Shadow heads out at this stage to the greenhouse out the back, and he's trying to make his way out the back. And he's right as he's about to open up the door to leave, he gets grabbed by the tree, of which I should have rechecked its name, but I forgot. But the tree has a name. I'm sure we can find out if we Google it, but I don't know how important it is to know that name. But anyway, so the tree grabs him, and it appears to pull him inside the tree. This is, of course, if you forgot though, the tree that Wednesday grew in there. It's this seed thing, which they never did explain if it was a completely different one to the one that Salim and the Jinn picked up. And I don't think it is supposed to be a different one, which in that case means that, yes, there is a huge continuity error with this season, but whatever. So he's inside, and we start seeing the buffalo again, which I don't think we've seen this entire season. We haven't seen Shadow see the buffalo this season. Don't think so. We saw it a lot in season 1, of course. First episode, a couple episodes later, all these sorts of things. And it usually represents when Shadow's in his dream state, or whatever they want to call it. Where he's shown in season 1 previously to have a bit of precognition of sorts. That's a little bit of the tease. They teased what he was happening and these sorts of things. And it was the buffalo always showed up whenever Shadow was in his dream state. So that's what we started seeing here. And then Shadow starts having flashbacks to a lot of stuff with his mother and conversations that he's had with Wednesday. And it really, really, really tries to hone home, in case you can't put it together at this stage by itself, pretty much about just saying Wednesday is Shadow's father. It's like, Wednesday is Shadow's father. Oh my God. We all saw it coming. I would like to know if anyone was legit surprised, I guess, because it was just hinted at so often before this point. I mean, as I said, haven't read the books, right? Haven't read the books. It was very much teased out a lot this episode. Kind of knew where it was going. We then see a scene where young Shadow is playing with his toys on a toy mat or something along those lines. And as he's playing with them all, they look like the exact house that the funeral home, and then also all the police. And then young Shadow like knocks them all over, and then everything blinks, big flash of light. The cops are gone. Don't know where Shadow's gone. But the cops are gone from the house out the front. And then we flash to a scene which is presumably sometime later, I guess. But it's the FBI talking to the CEO tech kid thing. And he's explaining the Argus hack, and the FBI asking if they can get the what was stolen back. And then the CEO dude's like, no, we're doomed. We're doomed. We're fucked. We're real up shit creek. So I guess that's like a potential, like season 3, the world's still in panic from Mr. World's plan. It's like, it's a little bit confusing to be like, did Mr. World's plan fail? He didn't get Shadow. He didn't get Wednesday, but the world's in havoc, and that's good for him. So I guess it's a great old success, somewhat. And then we cut back to the funeral house, and we see Nancy. He walks into the green room or whatever, greenhouse, whatever, the back room. I don't really know where the tree was. And there's no tree there. He sees the hatchet on the ground, which is what Shadow was hacking away with. I forgot to mention that. Sorry, that was a quick moment. We do see Shadow hacking away at this tree on the inside, trying to escape. And when he does break it is when we get that last scene of the kid and the flash of light and all these sorts of things. What the hacking away of the tree represents... Take my silence as I don't know, I guess. But he walks into the room, he sees Shadow's not there, he sees the tree's not missing, sees the hatchet, and then Nancy goes, now we're talking. So I guess that's a good sign to him. Then we see a quick shot also of Laura, who has taken Sweeney's body and is carrying it on her back, which anyone walking down the road who saw that small lady carrying that giant man would be asking questions. But nonetheless, where she's going, can kind of theorize, I guess, that, well, look, she's got the love potion, right? We know this. The love potion. The potion that requires blood of love to bring someone back to life, blah, 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 blah. She has that. She knows that people can be brought back to life. She's definitely hinted that in this episode that she's got more feelings for him than she's previously shown. She's probably heading back to try and get him revived, which is what I'm hoping. I mean, you know, in that last episode when I was talking about after his death, I was hoping they'd bring him back. I was talking about the possibility of Laura just running into the room and kind of doing it straight away. That, of course, didn't happen. But Pablo Schreiber in interviews following that episode has said, no, he's dead for now. Like, there's I don't definitely know anything about him coming back, blah, 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 blah. I'll say that he's coming back. That's where I'd be willing to put my money on this for sure. It's like, where is she going with him? What's she got to do with him, So that's where I'm going to say she's talking. And then we cut to the final scene of the episode, which is Shadow's on a bus. How he got there, I don't know. I don't even know if he fucking knows how he got there. It just seems he's blinked onto it, really. He's kind of sleepy and stuff. And the bus is pulled over and everybody's checking all the IDs. I guess they're looking for Shadow Moon, presumably. Like still, even after they cancelled. I don't really know. I guess they're still looking for Shadow Moon, though. Anyway, when he hands the police officer his ID, it reads as Michael Ainzel, which isn't obviously his real name. Shadow is as surprised as everyone else. And then he just proceeds to get back on the bus and starts daydreaming again about his future and everything that's happened, I guess. And that's the most deflated season finale I think you could possibly have at this stage, which is him just disappearing on the bus. Where's he going? I don't know. If I read the books, will I know? Probably. Will I read the books before next season? Never say never. I don't know. It didn't happen last time, did it? So who knows? And that's it for this season as well. And, honestly, the season finale just can't get over it. I can't get over how much, after everything that season 1 sets up, that season 2 just has this nothing. No big cliffhanger, really. Nothing that's something. But yeah, that's it. Overall, an okay-ish episode. A deflated, not really interesting season finale. Weird episode, that's for sure. There will be one more episode of Viewing Gods, though, as always. We'll be coming back to do one more episode of this where I'll go through and I will rate every episode of the season from my least favorite to my favorite and kind of briefly go over the reasons why and give any overall lasting thoughts about season 2 as a whole and anything that I could be looking forward to in season 3 and these sorts of things. So I'll have another shortish, I reckon, wrap up episode coming, and that will be coming next week to finish off Viewing Gods as a season. So stay tuned to that one for that, of course, as well. Thank you for following me on this journey of the show, though. Hope you stand by for that last one, but if you drop off now because you can't be fucked watching that, nonetheless, thank you. I've been your Viewing God, Dylan Blight. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivaladil, Vivaladil. You can watch this show on YouTube at youtube.com/Explosion Network, or you can just listen to it if you do not want to see my face. That's okay. You can do that by searching for Viewing Gods on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcasting service you'd like to use. Or of course you can find this and much more great content, including our movie and TV podcast, What Do You Want to Watch, available at explosionnetwork.com. I will see you here next week for the finale of Viewing Gods. Until then, bye-bye.
Catch up on the latest TV, online media and movie news from the biggest comic book films and YouTube crazes to our local cinema scene. And then hear what we've been watching before asking the age-old question, what do you want to watch? Available on all podcast services every second Friday. Just search your podcast app for What Do You Want to Watch and subscribe for free now. And keep watching stuff, I guess.